In this demonstration, you're seeing a FileMaker Pro custom app that is used for the fantasy sports industry, specifically to predict the performance outcomes of professional football players in order to assist in timely decisions for fantasy football managers. This app has been top 10 and top 5 in accuracy of its predictions in the last 2 seasons, as compared to hundreds of other industry professionals. But it's the technology behind the scenes that is of primary interest here. First, this application has a proprietary CoreML machine learning model that consumes hundreds of data points of fantasy football performance data and uses ridge regression to turn them into ratings, like the ratings you see here: a player rating, a week rating, or a rest of season rating. For those that are not familiar with fantasy sports, the purpose of a system like this is so that users can decide whether or not they want to start a player or bench a player in their fantasy football lineup, and they want to do so with greater accuracy than their opponents. Think of this as a stock rating telling you whether to buy or sell a stock. But in this case, what you're buying is the potential for a good performance. One of the factors that goes into determining whether a player should be started or benched is the news that's associated with the player. Every day, hundreds of pieces of news are published, and the sooner the relevant news items can be identified and processed, the more significant the competitive advantage. Now, traditionally, you can have a team of dozens of humans reading news items looking for positive or negative factors that might impact the decision on whether or not to start or bench a player. And when they find meaningful information, they must find the associated player in whatever their system is, and then update their status as quickly as possible. But this FileMaker Pro application requires absolutely no human intervention, and it processes relevant news items instantaneously, using a machine learning model to consume API feeds of news and find the information that will have an impact on a given player. Here you see the script that processes the feed coming through the news API that links to a player record. The news items are then imported and attached to the appropriate player record. But you may notice the green badging and even the green clipping that you see within the news items, or even the red badging or the red clipping. This model has been trained to find specific words and phrases that represent either positive or negative news, and then highlight them, and then FileMaker uses that information to extract these clips and then present red or green badges on the player record. So how do you train a custom model? While there are numerous machine learning model applications, this app uses a custom monkey-learn model. Monkey-learn has several pre-built models that you can use that are doing common things like text extraction or classification. But it also allows you to create your own custom models. Creating a custom machine learning model means that you're going to feed it data and train it what to look for within that data. So in this tool, we're going to select some data to use for the training process. This example set just has 4 records, but this model was originally trained with hundreds of similar news items. After confirming that the sample records have been uploaded, you'll select the data that you want to train. So I'll just select a few of these records. And then under Actions, we'll choose Tag Selected Data. And monkey-learn presents you with a piece of data that in this case is an example of a news item. And you'll see that we have these tags over here. We've created these tags ahead of time for our model. Specifically, we're looking for positive information about a player. We'll call that starter. And then we're looking for any negative information. We'll call that bench. You see those represented here as different colors. Now, if you didn't have something selected already, you would just choose which of the tags that you want to use, and then use your Shift key to select an entire phrase. And as you go through each of the news items, you're going to train your model to look for certain phrases. So if it sees similar phrases in other news items, it'll know to classify them as either bench news or starter news. So you do this with as many examples as you can to train the data to look for information like this on its own. So this is how you train the model to look for these phrases so that it can learn to tag items without any human intervention. If you think of this process, it's really like transferring the knowledge inside a human brain into your machine learning model so that it can think like the human. So the more examples you give it, the more accurate your tagging process will be. Now, once your model has been trained, you can test out the model to see how it works on other examples of text, or when you're finished, MonkeyLearn allows you to link to the model using an API. When you subscribe to this service, you'll get your own model ID and API key, and most importantly, you'll get this URL. This is the URL that is used in the FileMaker script as part of the insert from URL script step. This script will use the URL to process the news items, and the model will send back a classifier and extracted text. The extracted text goes into the news clipping field that we looked at earlier, and the classifier value is used by the conditional formatting in the field object to highlight the starter tags as green and bench tags as red. While this model helps significantly reduce the labor of humans reading and processing news items down to seconds, there is still the matter of updating the player status field in the app and even notifying administrators or subscribers of these updates. And that's where Claris Connect comes into play. After the news item classifications have been completed and imported, the app is integrated into a Claris Connect flow, which is triggered by a webhook as the app loops through each news item. This flow uses an action leveraging the Twilio connector to send a notification email to a system administrator, or even to broadcast to all subscribers. The connector uses step data that comes over as JSON data in the curl options of the script that triggers the webhook. So this information is coming over from the FileMaker app. This is how we transfer data from the FileMaker app into Claris Connect flows. This step of the flow sends an SMS message to the recipient with the player headshot along with the extracted text and the status update. Then the final step of the flow uses an action which will edit the FileMaker record. It'll identify the appropriate FileMaker record by the record ID that was passed over in the JSON data from the calling script. And then the start bench field inside the app will be updated with the value from the classifier that was fed from the machine learning model. And then the start bench status field is updated from the flow based on the classification value that came over from the machine learning model. The combination of Claris FileMaker, CoreML, custom machine learning models, and using APIs and Claris Connect allow this FileMaker app to perform the work of dozens of humans in just seconds, providing significant advantage to the users of the system who do not even need to directly interact with it to be able to update. Yet another example of machine learning used to create game-changing efficiencies within a FileMaker custom app.